Hi, second graders. Welcome back to Phonics. I hope you enjoyed learning how to spell different words with suffixes last week. Guess what? This week, we are going to learn more about suffixes. We're going to be practicing 2 new suffixes. But first, I want to remind us, what is a suffix? What is a suffix? Well, a suffix is a letter or a group of letters that get added to a base word that change the meaning of a base word. So remember, a base word is any word that cannot be broken down. And when we add a suffix to it, it changes the meaning of the base word. So last week, we learned about the suffixes s and es. And if you remember, those suffixes made a base word plural. So s and es made a base word plural, which means more than one. Well, this week, we're going to learn about 2 new suffixes. These suffixes are not going to make a base word plural. Instead, they are going to tell us when an action is happening. So when we add these 2 suffixes for this week to a base word, it tells us when something is happening, whether it's happening now or it already happened. Let's look at our 2 suffixes for this week. Your first suffix is ing. ing, we already learned the sound that this makes because ing is also a glued sound. But when it's added to the end of a base word, we call it a suffix. ing tells us that something is happening right now at this moment. ing, as we know, makes the same sound as the glued sound, like in ring. So ing says ing. Can you repeat that? ing says ing. Awesome. Again, this suffix tells us that something is happening right now when we add it to the end of a base word. Your other suffix for this week is ed. ed tells us that something has already happened, that it's happened in the past when we add it to the end of a base word. ed is a little bit trickier because it makes 3 different sounds. Oh my goodness. Let's practice all the different sounds that ed makes. ed, suffix ed says id. Suffix ed says d. Suffix ed says t. Awesome. I know this can be a little bit tricky because ed makes 3 different sounds when it's a suffix, but we'll practice reading all different kinds of words with ed, and you'll figure out which ones make which sounds, and the more you read and the more you practice, the easier it will be. But the most important thing to know right now is that ing as a suffix tells us that an action is happening right now at this moment, and ed as a suffix tells us that an action has already happened in the past, maybe earlier today, maybe yesterday, maybe last year. So we're going to look at some examples, and just a reminder that when we tap out words with suffixes, we only tap out the base word. We never tap out the suffix. So when you're tapping, make sure you're tapping the base word, reading the base word, and then reading the base word plus the suffix. We do not tap out the suffix. So let's look at some of these words, and we can figure out the base word and the suffix. This first word is spelling. We are spelling words with suffixes right now. Let's practice tapping this out. Remember, we only tap out the base word. The base word is spell. Ready? S-p-e-l. Spell, spelling. So I tapped the base word, read the base word plus the suffix. Spelling. The suffix ing tells us that we are spelling right now, which we are. We are spelling words with suffixes right now. Let's look at another example. This word is spelled. Let's tap out spelled. Ready? S-p-e-l. Spell, spelled. Listen carefully. What sound does ed make in spelled? Ed says d. That is one of the sounds that ed makes. Spelled, I know when I see a suffix ed, it tells me that the action has already happened. So this might mean last week we spelled words with s and es suffixes. So we already did that. It happened in the past. And I know that because I see the suffix ed. Notice I underlined the base word and circled the suffix. Let's look at some more examples. Okay. This word is kicked. Let's tap it out. Ready? K-I-K, kick, kicked. Notice that ed makes a little bit of a different sound in this word. Listen carefully. See if you can figure out what sound ed makes in kicked. What do you hear? Ed says t in this word, but it still means that this action happened in the past. So the sentence might say, last week I kicked the ball in my soccer game. Kicked, it already happened. I know that because the suffix is ed. I underlined the base word and I circled the suffix. Remember, we don't have to look for anything else this week. We're just thinking about finding the base words and the suffixes. Let's look at one more example, then we'll do some together. This word is painted. Painted. Let's tap it out. Remember, we only tap out the base word. P-A-N-T. Paint. Painted. Wow. What sound does ed make in this word? Painted. Ed says id. Super tricky. But I know that ed means that this action already happened. So maybe the sentence is, I painted a picture last night. Painted. I underlined the base word and I circled the suffix. Let's do some together. I have a couple of pictures and we are going to figure out what the base word is and then add suffixes to the base word. Okay. What is going on in this picture? What is the base word? These are 2 feet. The base word is walk. Walk. So let me tap that out. Walk. Well, I've seen this word before, and I know how to spell walk. I know it starts with a W, so a W, and it has A-L-K. This is the base word. Now I want to add some suffixes. So I want to show that somebody is walking right now. If they're walking right now, I need to add the suffix ing, I-N-G. So I'm going to underline the base word and circle my suffix. Somebody is walking their dog right now. What if I wanted to say that I walked down the street yesterday? Walked. I need to add a different suffix. ing does not work for that. What suffix do I need to add? Walked. I need to add ed. Even though when I say walked, it sounds like a t. I know that sometimes suffix ed says t. So I'm going to underline my base word, which is walk, and I'm going to circle my suffix ed. So we have 2 different suffixes that change the meaning. Somebody is walking their dog right now, or I walked down the street yesterday. Happening now, already happened. Let's look at one more. Okay, this is an ice cube. What's going on with this ice cube? There's a puddle around it. What is the base word? The base word is melt. Melt. Let me tap out melt. M-E-L-T. Melt. M is M. E is E. L-T. L-T. That's the blend L-T. So my base word is melt. Now I want to show that the ice cube right now is melting. Which suffix do I need to add? I know that ing makes the word show that the action is happening right now. Melting. The ice cube is melting right now. Melting. Remember, if I want to tap this out, I tap out the base word, read the base word, read the word with the suffix. M-E-L-T. Melt. Melting. What if I wanted to say that the ice cube melted yesterday on the counter? Melted. Melted. I need to add a different suffix. Let's see. My base word is the same. Now I need to add the suffix that tells me that something already happened. Melted. I need to add ed. Melted. The suffix makes a different sound than it did in walked. Melted. Ed says id. It sounds a little bit different, but I know it's the same suffix because ed says 3 different sounds. Wow. Melt. Melt. Melted. So the ice cube is melting right now, or the ice cube melted yesterday on my counter. Same base word, 2 different suffixes. Wow, friends. Awesome job. Thank you for helping me tap those words and figure out the suffixes. So remember, today when you are doing your phonics work, make sure when you're tapping out your words, you're only tapping out the base word, then you're reading the base word, then reading the base word with the suffix. And remember, ed tells us that something already happened, and ing tells us that it's happening right now. So be really careful when you're choosing your suffixes. I hope you enjoy this week's phonics activities, and I will see you next week. We are learning 2 more suffixes next week. You all are rock stars, and I'll see you soon. Bye, friends.